At 10:17 on the morning of March 18, 1944, Corporal Aimo Koivunen of Section Paatsalo, 4th Company, Rangers Sissi, stood in the Lapland snow, 60 kilometers south of Murmansk, his hands frozen inside thick winter gloves, trying to extract a single Pervitin tablet from a glass vial. He could not get one pill out. The gloves were too thick, his fingers too numb. The Soviet patrol that had ambushed his ski reconnaissance unit moments before was closing distance. Koivunen needed energy. He needed to stay awake. He had been cutting trail through waist-deep snow for 3 days straight at the front of the patrol, the most exhausting position. He tipped the vial into his palm. 30 white pills tumbled out. 3 milligrams of methamphetamine hydrochloride each. 90 milligrams total. He swallowed them all. The protocols of the Finnish military in early 1944 were clear regarding Pervitin usage: 2 to 4 tablets per day, 9 to 15 milligrams maximum under normal operational conditions. Extreme circumstances might justify 100 milligrams in a 24-hour period, but never as a single dose. Koivunen had just consumed 90 milligrams in one swallow. The vial he emptied contained the emergency stimulant supply for his entire patrol. Section Paatsalo had departed Finnish lines on March 15th for a long-range reconnaissance mission into Soviet-held territory. The temperature held steady at minus 15 degrees Celsius, 14 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. The patrol moved on Finnish military skis, wood and leather, no heel binding for rapid dismount. Each man carried a Mosin Nagant rifle, 60 rounds of ammunition, 3 days of rations, and winter camouflage whites. Koivunen drew the lead position because he was the youngest and strongest, 27 years old, farm background. He knew cold. He knew endurance work. Cutting trail meant breaking through virgin snow for hours without relief. The men behind him followed in his track, conserving energy. Koivunen burned his. By the morning of March 18th, 72 hours into the patrol, Koivunen was operating on 2 hours of sleep and whatever calories remained from field rations eaten cold. The patrol stopped at approximately 1000 hours to prepare tea. Soviet forces had been tracking them for at least 6 hours. The ambush came from the northeast, rifle fire, close, maybe 100 meters. The Finns scattered. Standard doctrine: regroup at Rally Point Alpha. Koivunen moved west on skis, fast. His legs were shutting down. 3 days of trail breaking without stimulants or proper rest had depleted his glycogen reserves. His body was cannibalizing muscle tissue for energy. He reached for the Pervitin vial. The decision to consume all 30 tablets was not conscious. It was mechanical failure. Frozen hands, thick gloves, desperation. The pills went down. All of them. Pervitin, manufactured by Temmler-Werke in Germany and distributed to Axis forces throughout the war, produced effects within 5 to 10 minutes of oral ingestion. Methamphetamine hydrochloride crossed the blood-brain barrier rapidly. It triggered massive release of dopamine and norepinephrine. Heart rate increased, blood vessels constricted, pupils dilated. The user experienced euphoria, enhanced focus, suppression of appetite, elimination of fatigue. A soldier on Pervitin could march for 20 hours without sleep, could fight through injuries that would incapacitate an unmedicated man, could operate in sub-zero temperatures without noticing cold. The recommended dose achieved these effects for 6 to 8 hours. Koivunen had ingested 9 times the maximum single dose. What happened next had no medical precedent in military records. At 10:25, Koivunen felt the ignition. His heart rate surged, his vision sharpened. The snow around him became unnaturally bright. He began skiing, not toward the rally point, not in any deliberate direction. His body moved independent of conscious thought. The methamphetamine had overridden his prefrontal cortex. He was a machine fueled by chemistry, operating on autopilot. The Soviet patrol pursuing Section Paatsalo heard the sharp hiss of his skis cutting through powder. They did not pursue. One man moving at that speed through that terrain was either insane or already dead. Koivunen skied for 14 hours without stopping. No food, no water. He ate snow when his mouth dried out. His heart hammered at a rate that should have caused cardiac arrest. 120 beats per minute at rest for an athletic male. Koivunen's pulse was pushing 200. His core temperature climbed despite the 15 below zero ambient air. Methamphetamine interfered with thermoregulation. The body's internal furnace burned uncontrolled. He covered approximately 100 kilometers in 24 hours, from 10:25 on March 18th to 10:25 on March 19th. The average Finnish ski patrol covered 30 to 40 kilometers per day under normal conditions. Koivunen was moving at 4 to 5 kilometers per hour sustained. No breaks, no rest. His legs worked like pistons. His lungs pulled frozen air in mechanical rhythm. Sometime during the night he lost his skis. The historical record does not specify how. Perhaps they broke. Perhaps he stepped out of the bindings and forgot to reattach them. Koivunen had no memory of the night. He woke on the morning of March 19th, lying in snow, alone. No unit, no supplies, no map. He did not know where he was. He did not remember skiing through the night. The methamphetamine was still active in his bloodstream. He could feel it. His heart still racing, his vision still sharp. But the euphoria had converted to paranoia. He assessed his situation. Mosin Nagant rifle still strapped to his back, ammunition pouches empty. He had fired all 60 rounds at some point during the night. At what? He did not remember. Winter camouflage whites torn and stained with sweat and snowmelt, boots intact. No skis. He was somewhere south of Murmansk in Soviet-controlled territory with no way to navigate and no supplies. The finish lines were east, maybe 80 kilometers, maybe more. He began walking. Within 3 hours, he realized he was being followed. Soviet reconnaissance patrol. He could hear voices behind him, Russian. He increased his pace, no longer moving toward finish lines, moving away from the patrol. The methamphetamine kept him upright, kept him moving. His body should have collapsed from exhaustion. Instead, it obeyed the chemical override. On an unspecified date between March 19th and March 22nd, Koivunen stepped on a landmine, Soviet TM-35 or TM-62. The records do not identify the specific type. The mine detonated under his left foot. Bone fragments erupted through the skin at multiple angles, muscles shredded, blood sprayed across white snow. Koivunen described it later in the memorial he wrote for Kansa Taisteli magazine. Ossos apontando en diferentes direcções, músculos parecendo ralados. Bones pointing in different directions, muscles like they had been grated. He dragged himself to the nearest cover, a Soviet dugout or trench, abandoned. He collapsed inside. His left foot was destroyed. Medical terminology would classify the injury as a grade 3 open fracture with catastrophic soft tissue damage. Without immediate surgical intervention and antibiotics, the survival rate for such an injury in a field environment approached 0. Koivunen had neither surgery nor antibiotics. He had a destroyed foot, sub-zero temperatures, no food, and 90 milligrams of methamphetamine still metabolizing in his liver. He remained in the dugout for approximately 1 week, 5 to 7 days. The historical sources conflict. Some say 5, some say 7. Koivunen himself did not know. Time became abstract. Day and night cycled without meaning. His body was eating itself to survive. A 70-kilogram man requires roughly 2,000 calories per day to maintain basic metabolic functions at rest. Koivunen had been moving continuously for days with minimal caloric intake. His body began catabolizing muscle and fat tissue. His immune system shut down non-essential functions to preserve core operations. His heart continued to beat at 180 to 200 beats per minute. The methamphetamine would not release him. At some point during his time in the dugout, Koivunen caught a Siberian jay, Perisoreus infaustus, a small boreal forest bird common to Lapland, weight approximately 70 to 100 grams. The historical record does not document how he caught it. His ammunition was gone. His hands were frostbitten. Perhaps the bird landed near him and he grabbed it. Perhaps he fashioned some kind of trap. Koivunen did not elaborate in his writings. He ate the bird raw. No fire, impossible to light a fire without revealing his position to Soviet patrols. A Siberian jay provides approximately 400 to 500 calories. For a man who had not eaten in days, it was enough to delay death. It was not enough to sustain survival. In 7 days, a 70-kilogram man requires 14,000 calories to maintain basic functions. Koivunen had consumed 500. The mathematics suggested he should be dead. Between March 26th and March 28th, Koivunen left the dugout. He could not remain. Staying meant freezing to death. The temperature had not risen above -15 degrees Celsius since the mission began. He dragged himself out using his arms. His left foot was useless. The bone splinters had not been set. The wound had not been cleaned. Infection was setting in. Gangrene. The tissue was turning black. He crawled for several hours before attempting to stand. He improvised a movement technique. Right leg pushes, left leg drags. 2 kilometers per hour, perhaps 3 in optimal conditions. He moved east, toward finish lines, or what he believed were finish lines. His navigation was instinctive. No map, no compass. The sun rose in the east. He followed it. His body at this point weighed approximately 50 to 55 kilograms. He had lost 15 to 20 kilograms since March 15th. Most of the loss was muscle mass and water weight. His face was skeletal. His uniform hung loose. His hands shook continuously. The methamphetamine remained detectable in his system. 90 milligrams was an extraordinary dose. The half-life of methamphetamine in the human body is approximately 10 to 12 hours under normal conditions, but Koivunen was not operating under normal conditions. Extreme cold slows metabolic processes. Starvation alters liver enzyme activity. The drug was lingering. His heart rate had not dropped below 160 beats per minute since March 18th. 7 days of sustained tachycardia should have caused myocardial infarction. His heart should have failed. It did not. On March 30th or 31st, Koivunen began to see signs of Finnish military activity. ski tracks in the snow, different pattern than Soviet tracks. Finnish military skis had a distinctive binding configuration. The tracks were recent, within 24 hours. He followed them. His vision was tunneling. The methamphetamine psychosis was deepening. He heard voices that were not there. He saw movement in the trees, shadows. He continued moving. Right leg push, left leg drag, 2 kilometers per hour. He covered approximately 8 to 10 kilometers in 12 hours. On April 1st or 2nd, sources vary, he collapsed roughly 2 kilometers from a Finnish forward position. A Finnish patrol found him unconscious in the snow at approximately 200 hours on April 2nd, 1944. One source provides this specific time, others do not. The patrol recognized him as Finnish military by his uniform. They carried him to the field hospital. The medics documented his condition. Weight, 43 kilograms. Loss of 27 kilograms from his estimated pre-mission weight of 70 kilograms. That represented a 38% reduction in body mass. The lethal threshold for starvation-induced body mass loss is approximately 40%. Koivunen was within 2 percentage points of death by starvation. Heart rate, 200 beats per minute, sustained. 14 days after ingesting the Pervitin, the methamphetamine should have cleared his system completely within 72 hours. It had not. His heart was beating 3 times faster than normal resting rate. His blood pressure was not recorded in available documents. His core temperature was not recorded. His left foot was a catastrophic injury. Bone exposed, tissue necrotic. The medical staff did not document whether the foot was amputated or salvaged. Koivunen lived until 1989. He died at age 71. His post-war mobility was not documented in accessible records. The Finnish military hospital held him for several weeks. The exact duration is not specified in primary sources. He recovered. The methamphetamine eventually cleared his system. His heart rate returned to normal range. His weight stabilized. Whether he suffered permanent cardiac damage or neurological impairment is not documented. After his discharge from the hospital, there is no record of him returning to combat operations. The war in Lapland continued until Finland signed an armistice with the Soviet Union in September 1944. Koivunen's service record after April 1944 does not appear in accessible archives. He married a woman named Elsa. They had 9 children. The family settled in central Finland after the war. In 1977, Koivunen wrote a short memoir of his experience and submitted it to Kansa Taisteli, a monthly magazine published by Bonnier Publications that collected war stories from Finnish veterans. The magazine ran from 1957 to 1986. Koivunen's submission placed second in a wartime story competition. The text exists in Finnish archives but has not been widely translated into English. His son Mika was interviewed years later and confirmed that his father rarely spoke about the war. Koivunen died on August 12, 1989. His story represents the first documented case of methamphetamine overdose in combat conditions. There is no comparable incident in military medical literature from World War II. Other soldiers took Pervitin. Other soldiers exceeded recommended doses, but no other soldier consumed 90 milligrams at once and survived. No other soldier skied 400 kilometers over 14 days with a destroyed foot, no food, and a heart rate sustained at 200 beats per minute. The medical explanation for his survival does not exist. Methamphetamine at that dose should have caused fatal cardiac arrhythmia within hours. Starvation at that level of caloric deficit should have induced organ failure within 5 days. Sepsis from an untreated open fracture in sub-zero temperatures should have killed him within 72 hours. Koivunen survived all three, simultaneously. Some military historians have suggested that the methamphetamine stimulant effects paradoxically preserved his life by keeping his metabolism elevated in freezing temperatures, that the drug prevented hypothermia by maintaining his core temperature artificially high. Others suggest that the extreme cold slowed the progression of septic infection in his foot by reducing bacterial growth. These are theories. They are not proven. What is proven is that Koivunen covered 400 kilometers in 14 days, survived a landmine blast, survived starvation, survived methamphetamine overdose, and walked into Finnish lines alive. The mathematics of his survival do not reconcile with known human physiology. The Finnish Defence Forces did not issue formal recognition or medals for Koivunen's survival. There is no record of commendations or awards in accessible military archives. His story was not publicized during the war. It entered public awareness only after he submitted his memoir to Kansa Taisteli in 1977. By then, he was 59 years old, a father of 9, a man who had spent 33 years not talking about what happened in Lapland in March 1944. His story was not heroism. It was a biological anomaly, a statistical impossibility. John George proved that a civilian marksman with a privately owned rifle could outperform military snipers through superior skill and equipment selection. Aimo Koivunen proved that the human body under extreme chemical influence can violate its own operational limits. George's legacy was tactical. Koivunen's legacy was medical. George changed how armies thought about marksmanship. Koivunen became a case study in methamphetamine toxicology and cold weather survival physiology. Neither man sought recognition. Both received it decades after the events that defined them. If this story affected you the way it should, do something simple. Hit the like button. That tells the algorithm this matters. Hit subscribe if you want more stories about men who survived the unsurvivable, not through heroism, through endurance, through accident, through biology behaving in ways that should not be possible. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. United States, Finland, Germany. Wherever you are, you're part of keeping these stories from disappearing. Koivunen did not ask to be remembered. He asked to be left alone. But his body did something that medical science still cannot fully explain. 400 kilometers at 15 below zero on 90 milligrams of methamphetamine with a destroyed foot and no food. That is not a story. That is a data point that should not exist. And now you know it does.